Check 1 2.
Livermore Live Music presents Spotlight, shining a light on Livermore's incredible music scene. Here are your hosts, Rob Allen and Kevin Snyder.
Hey, welcome everybody. We're coming to you today from the incredible studios of Advanced Creative in Livermore, California, and our special spotlight guest today is Page Mill Winery. We have Dane Stark and Debbie Cristiano from Page Mill Winery. Welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, we always like to start off with a little bit of refreshment for our guests. Normally, I tell everybody what that refreshment is ahead of time, but we thought it would be fun since, Dane, you're a winemaker, and Debbie, you're a sommelier, and you've run a couple of wine tasting rooms here a little more. Well, if you're not, you should be. So we'll announce it in a second, but I thought we would just start by cheers. No, start with the wine. And just tell me what you think. I picked this out this morning for our broadcast. Tell me what you think. Yeah.
Oh, I got to follow Dane. I got to see what he does, so I know how to do it right.
Ooh.
Delicious.
That's pretty good, huh? Yeah,
where's the big jar?
Yeah, look for the jar there. So, want to take a guess? What we're drinking here?
It's like a doe dancing through a dewy meadow.
Right, with a hint of blueberries, and yeah,
that's good stuff.
So that's
I hope that's mine.
Page. It is. That's very good. Yeah, that's Page Mill Vintner Select Cabernet Sauvignon, 2016.
Nice.
Sauvignon, of course, is French for man. That's really good.
You're right.
Yeah. We also have something else. Now, this one may or may not tickle your fancy. If you don't like it, then please don't drink it. But this is from Sutherland Distilleries, right? Local Livermore craft distillery. And this is their rum. And it's called Navy Strength rum, and not for nothing is it called that. So take a little sip, you'll go, wow, and then let it finish, and you'll understand why when, the sailors have been out looking at the briny ocean in 20-degree weather for an hour, they come in and have a sip of this.
I do enjoy rum.
I like that a lot.
Yum.
Wow.
Hey, I just found out.
Wait.
Oh. Oh.
I just wanted to share that this really swabs my deck.
No sound effect for that?
Aye, matey.
How about that one?
And to quote from Pirates of the Caribbean, why the rum? Nothing, nobody from that. Okay. That's fine.
You're giving me lots of opportunities to play with this right
every
here.
day, right?
Yeah.
On a serious note, I do have tinnitus, but I just found out that they have a helpline. I'm disappointed, though. I called it. It just rang and rang. Okay. So
I thought it wasn't time for the bad joke pass around.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, getting a jump on myself here. Hey, so today we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about your backgrounds, how you got to where you are today, some of the things that have brought you to Page Mill and to live music at Page Mill. We certainly want to talk a little bit, not exclusively, but about live music. You guys have, a wonderful venue for live music, and you have live music there a lot. So we want to kind of chat with you about that, some of your experiences with having bands here and so forth. And then plans for the future, things you've got in the works. And make sure at the end that you have a chance to talk to us about anything that we forgot to ask about. Let me start off by, though, making sure that you have a chance. We only can have 2 guests at a time, but there may be I imagine there are some other folks from Page Mill that you want to acknowledge and recognize. So let me start by asking, who else do you wish could be here with us to talk about Page Mill?
Everybody.
Yeah.
The whole family, but we'd fill this room.
Yeah.
In production alone, we've got Joe and Jack and Enrique, who are the heart and soul of the production. And
then our tasting room, we've got Edie, and Enrique also works in there. We've got Annette. We've got all kinds of great people.
Yeah. And we'll come back to it in a minute, but Tommy also, I can never pronounce his last name correctly.
Vanut.
Thank you. So we'll talk about him because I don't know if he's a full-time employee of Page Mill, but I think he's really important to some of the things you're doing. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk a little bit about your own backgrounds. Debbie, let's start with you. So, where'd you grow up? How did you get into the wine tasting business, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I grew up in San Bruno, on the peninsula, and my background is in recreation. So I went to Cal Poly, got a degree in recreation, and from there was planning events and activities, mostly in nursing homes and retirement communities. So mostly working with seniors. I did work with kids for a long time as well. And kind of got into the wine business through the back door.
Yeah.
Started with coffee, as you know. You've been to our...
Oh, that's right. You and your husband, Joe, ran the Cafe Paradiso.
Yes.
Right, which coincidentally my wife and I used to go and visit on a regular basis.
And your daughter worked.
And my daughter worked. I forgot about that. That's right.
Yeah.
Jesse worked for you for a while, yeah?
Yeah. So when I left, or when we sold the cafe, I went and worked for another winery, and then ended up at Page Mill.
And you were the tasting room manager at the other winery, and then you left there and ended up at Page Mill. And now you're the tasting room manager there, yeah?
Yes. And tiny bit owner.
Oh, nice. Oh, I didn't know that was an option. Like I got $20 here if I can buy in. Yeah.
Got to put in the time too.
Oh, all right. Well, and Dane, what about you? Tell us a little bit about your background and how you became a winemaker and came to own Page Mill.
Well, I grew up in the business. My dad, when he was 45, was selling lasers around the world and saw a small family-owned winery as his way to accomplish what he wanted. One of which was to see more of his kids growing up, because at the time he was traveling all over Europe and everything, missing out on football games and stuff like that. And he also wanted to do his own thing, wanted to be home-based, and he saw these little family-owned wineries in the Rheingau with 8 or 10 barrels underneath the house, and he thought, I want to give that a shot.
Okay.
So in 75, he made 15 gallons of Chenin Blanc. It turned out it was undrinkable. My uncle called it Urina Blanca. And with that winemaking experience under his belt, he literally quit his job, dug a hole into the house, and started making wine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 76 was the inaugural vintage at Page Mill.
Why was it called Page Mill?
So it's called Page Mill Winery because the winery started underneath my parents' house on Page Mill Road in Los Altos Hills.
Okay, good. Makes sense.
Over on the peninsula. I went away to college. It'll surprise you to know much, preferring beer, and spent my junior year abroad in France studying enology at the University of Bordeaux, which is where I fell in love with wine. And when I came back, I realized what my dad was doing was pretty cool, and I've been 89 is my first professional harvest, and so I've been doing it ever since.
That's fantastic. And I'll comment, I happen to know. So because of that experience and maybe other things too, but you speak fluent French?
I used to speak really fluent French. Now I speak French.
Because I meant to mention earlier, in addition to the wine and the rum, we also have un bouteille d'eau, which Dane will tell you is French for, that's a $10 bottle of water.
Exactly.
Because it's French.
Right.
One of the things about Page Mill that has been written up in a number of magazines and newspapers over the last few years is biodynamic farming. So talk a little bit about that.
So at Page Mill, Page Mill Winery is you bring yourself and all of your personalities to your business, as you guys know. And one thing that I've always been focused on is sustainability. And the future that we're leaving to our kids. At Page Mill, we that comes out in several ways. One of them is that we're organic. We're trying not to put chemicals into the environment, load the streams with bad stuff, et cetera. The BYOB program, once a month you can fill a bottle.
Bring your own bottle.
Because recycling is good, reusing is better. And another way that we do it is through the biodynamics of the vineyards, is where we're trying to tune in the vineyard and nature to really tune everything in so that we're making the best wines possible.
I think I saw it described in one article, and maybe this was Tommy when he was talking about, saying treating the area, right, the Page Mill estate, as a single living organism, and just think of it that way, and everything, it's connected to each other, and all of the organics that you do. It's not just that you use organic fertilizers, or that, I mean, you have a whole philosophy about how you run your whole estate as a single organism, which I think is fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I had a little bit more space and maybe a little more time and probably a lot more money, I could really take it to the next level. But what we're trying to do on sort of a microcosm is essentially treat it where if you close the gates, everything would happen within that space, and the things that you're taking from the environment, you're putting back into the environment.
Right.
One thing that we're trying to do is educate the public on what that looks like. And when we went organic, I'll tell you a quick story. When I moved here to Livermore and bought the property where the winery is, my neighbor who grows the Tizeta Syrah, which is just adjacent to the tasting room. She and I became friends, and I started making that Syrah. And I was managing our vineyard, and she said, "Why don't you manage my vineyard?" And I said, "Absolutely not. If in 2 years you still want me to do it, then I'll do it." And the reason is this: if you looked out into her vineyard, it was there were as many weeds as this table right here.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like this table, and the way you get that is by spraying weed killer and pre-emergent. Weed killer that kills green on contact, and pre-emergent that sits in the soil and kills anything that starts to grow in the next 90 days. And so she looked at that vineyard, and that's the way that she wanted it, right? Well, it took me a couple years to have her witness what was going on next door and see the weeds and have me explain why there are weeds under our vines, and it looks a little bit rugged. And she came to understand we hadn't added any fertilizers to the vineyard. We don't need to because of the way that the soil's treated. And so then she came around and she said, "Okay, let's go organic." And so now, if you look at the Tizeta vineyard next to the tasting room, they're both kind of wild.
That's a great story. And I think there's been a few other vineyards in the valley that have come to you and expressed interest in your approach to all of this.
Well, so right now I'm managing 3 vineyards. I got the Tizeta vineyard next door, our estate vineyard, and then the Chandler vineyard, which is a Chardonnay over in Kaltoff Commons. Those are the 3 I'm managing.
That's awesome. On your estate there at Page Mill, that's on North Livermore, just before
Avenue.
It turns into Tesla.
Exactly.
Right? You grow Petite Syrah there, right?
That's
Which
right.
is a wonderful wine. I love your Petite Syrah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll come back to this in a minute, but I would also note that you are also a musician.
I try to be. I'm not really, but
I think you're selling yourself short. I mean, we've heard you play at Page Mill and at other places, and you've played by yourself. I know you've played a number of gigs with as a duo with John Thayer.
That's right.
He's from the Monkey Lizards, very entertaining, specific songwriter, great following. And you and John have played a number of times. And then you're fronting a band called Icelandic Underbelly.
Icelandic Underbelly.
Yeah. Which nobody will be surprised to know you have Danish roots.
Right. Well, Swedish actually.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think the Swedes and Danes were mortal enemies, but I got the moniker Nordicus, and Icelandic Underbelly kind of flowed from that. So.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So we'll come back and maybe touch on that a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about live music at Page Mill. So, I mean, you've had the Page Mill Winery in Livermore has been open for a long time.
15 years?
2004, something like that. And I don't know if you originally had live music from time to time, but now you have live music there on a regular basis. You have it at least twice a month and sometimes more often than that. How did that come to pass?
Well, it's a natural fit, I think, because I was a struggling poet for all of my life until I realized I'm actually not a poet. I'm a wannabe musician. And I always used to say wine is my livelihood and poetry is my passion. So there's a real confluence of all that creative energy. I think it's a perfect fit. Don't you?
Yeah, right. I absolutely do.
I'm in agreement.
Yeah.
Well, I think also once we extended the patio and paved, or did the cement patio and
Right.
extended the upper deck, it gave us more of a viable venue to have bands outside. And
Right. I understand.
Without sitting in the rain.
So I don't know. I mean, so for people who don't know or aren't familiar with Page Mill, first of all, go get familiar with it because it's a wonderful venue. And I'm not sure which came first, the chicken or the egg, in terms of bands and the expansion. But originally, you just had the tasting room, and you had some French doors that opened on the outside, but the rest of the grounds there, not the vineyard estate, but the rest of near the tasting room was just like gravel and dirt and, sort of unfinished. And then you eventually paved the first half of that and built a really nice, it's not a pergola, it's a, overhang or whatever, with lights and electric heaters and a ceiling fan, and created that great little environment. And then a while later, you got a tent, I don't know what you call it, but an entertainment tent, and extended that even further back. So now, as a venue, I mean, I love going to Page Mill and listening to bands play there, and we've played there a couple of times, and it's fantastic because it's an all-weather venue. There aren't that many of them in Livermore. There's a few. But if it's nice, then you've got this wood deck outside, and people are sitting inside your covered patio. If it's hot, you got the fans on and the sides of the deck down. If it's cold, you got the sides up and the heaters going. And if it's raining, you bring the band inside the tent and have the heaters going, and so you literally can have music 12 months a year. Yeah, it's just a wonderful place.
Which we do. And for those of you who came to the winery in the first 5 or 7 years, the tasting room, actually where the tasting room is now, was just a breezeway. That was open. There were no walls. And the tasting room was inside the barrel room. So if you get a chance to step in and take a look at the barrel room, we painted the inside of the barrel room dark colors, and we hung a curtain, and when we had space, that was the tasting room. And when I found out that Debbie was no longer working at her prior employment, I very quickly called her because I knew she was a perfect person for the job.
Right.
And I said, look, we're going to build a tasting room. It's going to go right here. What do you think? And I that was 10 years ago?
9.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
yeah.
And so we've been expanding and trying to make it a better and better music venue.
Yeah, and it's and also just a great place to go. Even when there's not music there, you guys have, I mean, all your fantastic wines, they're great. But you also have cracker and cheese plates that you sell, or people can bring a picnic and just, sit out there and eat. It's just a wonderful venue. You book most of the music there, or I assume she's doing all the booking there.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, how often do you get contacted by bands? People, do they walk in and drop off cards or send you emails hoping to find another place to play in Livermore? Is that a common thing, or?
Very common.
Yeah.
I would say once a week.
Yeah.
Mostly, people send emails or drop off their card, like you said.
So we had a discussion on an episode a few back that I'd ask you the same thing, which is, so what do you want to see from a band when they're looking, whether it's at Page Mill or any place else, but as a person who books bands at a winery, what do you like to see from them that will help you understand whether they would be a good fit from there? And maybe equally important, like don't name names, but what is not helpful and what do you not need from them in order to get your attention?
So I typically want to actually see them in action. So, a lot of times people say, oh, we're playing over at such and such, and maybe come see us. So I would want to actually see them play, see what kind of crowd they draw, that type of thing. A lot of people will send a CD or a link to a YouTube video, which sometimes I'll check out, but that doesn't really tell me the kind of crowd they're bringing in.
Got it. Yeah.
That type of thing. So it's helpful, but it's not the end all.
Right, I understand.
way to find
And are there lessons that you can pass on to prospective musicians about what not to do? Things that, if someone does that to you, you sort of turn it off in your head and like you're not interested in them. I mean, if you don't have any experiences like that, that's fine. But
the only thing I could think of is not showing up or being late and, trying to bring in all of your equipment when our event has already started. That would be a definite no-no.
Right, got it.
But we haven't had a lot of that.
So you guys do have special events at Page Mill from time to time. I know you've done a few like wedding receptions or wedding parties. You did Halloween, Valentine's Day dinner last year, and you've tended to have live music of those things. So
Barrel tasting weekend.
Yeah,
Right.
we participate in all of the Wine Association or the Valley-wide events, and almost always have music for those as well.
It's time for Kevin's Corner!
So this is a little segment we're starting. Well, I guess we've started it now. But we're just going to have some fun. And it's kind of a break from the meaningful questions and giving you some kind of trivial questions. In fact, it's a lightning round, and I'm going to start a timer, and we'll see how many you can do in a minute. Well, actually, there's 2 of you, so we'll do 2 minutes.
Are we competing against each other?
No, there's
Oh, good.
No, it's a team sport.
yeah.
Because I know all
There-
this.
In the immortal words of some guy with glasses, everything's made up on the spot, and the points don't matter.
Perfect.
So I'll start with you, Debbie. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Wow.
Oh, I didn't mean for it to be that hard right off the bat.
Well, I
You think
do
about it
like
because you're
ice
next.
cream. I'm going to say something along the lines of Rocky Road. Something
Okay.
with
Okay.
chocolate, nuts, and
Yeah, there you go.
maybe a little
Okay.
something else.
Salted caramel.
Oh, that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay, so he
We need-
wins? Is that what you're saying?
no.
I'm sorry, he did. Yeah.
One for
A
Dan.
little bell
I'm
for
sorry.
that.
I'm sorry. And I'm tuning into our minute here. Dane, say a word in Spanish.
Espanol.
Wow.
Good job.
Was that right?
No, you were
That
supposed
was
to
in
say
Espanol?
a word
Oh,
in Spanish.
A word in Spanish.
Oh, so you lost a
Debbie.
point on that.
Say a word in Spanish.
I don't know.
You can pass.
Pass.
Okay. Do you believe in fate, Debbie?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
No.
No. No fate.
No.
You're not gonna carve it into the table or anything like that.
Should I?
No.
Oh,
Your favorite number, Dane?
47.
All right. Okay.
It's the answer to the
Debbie.
universe.
31.
31. Okay. Not the answer to the universe. Just
31's a
small.
good number, though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Debbie, who has it easier, men or women?
Man.
Debbie?
Women.
Wait,
You're
you're Dane.
Men have it really hard. Try to remember the names.
Blending over here.
Who is everybody's? Dane, who has it easier, men or women?
We both do.
It's all easy.
I don't, I'm not going to choose.
Okay.
Right.
Dane.
You're married,
Yes.
right?
Yes, it's obvious. Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Definitely not.
Yeah, okay, good. That's a good answer. Name a primate besides monkeys and apes.
Chimpanzee.
Dane?
Are there any others? Yeah, I don't know.
I was
I don't have answers here. I'm just reading the questions.
Oh, just the questions, huh? I've been fed orangutan. Not literally.
It's a little salty. It tasted like chicken. A little salty. If there's animal rights out there, I'm sorry. I'm
That was a
sorry.
joke.
We're just kidding. We're just kidding
Just
here.
kidding.
Why can't we tickle ourselves?
We can. Every morning when I put on my socks, I'm like,
Just before your sandals, right?
Socks and because he just didn't want to admit to it. But around home, it's socks and sandals. Can we why can't we tickle ourselves? Do you have a theory?
I think we don't want to tickle ourselves.
Good answer.
Is there such a thing as objective beauty? Man, these are hard
These
questions.
are hard questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to say
Skip it.
thank you.
Let's
can
move
I
on.
answer that one?
Yeah, you
I
can
think
have to.
pretty much everyone would look at a sunset and go,
That's objectively
Yeah.
I
beautiful.
think that's objectively
That's
beautiful.
that's
Maybe?
really good. That's the poet in
Maybe?
him.
I know,
That is
it's
the
not
poet.
fair.
Sorry.
If-
47. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to change that. What's the best age?
The best what?
Age.
Age? 52.
Just out of curiosity, Dane, how old are you?
52.
Oh, there you go.
I bet you Debbie does not answer that.
I'm going to say 21.
Yeah, I'll go with
Because
that.
she's
yeah.
21.
Yes.
Yeah, see, I would go like 30, early 30s.
Really?
Yeah, because
Right here and now, man.
okay,
Is always the
62,
answer.
62.
Is
He
always the
just
answer.
got back from Hawaii.
I know, right?
I'm feeling
on.
pretty relaxed.
It's all great.
Okay, 2 more questions. If Voldemort offered you a hug, would you accept?
No.
Would you
From
accept?
the front or the back?
It matters? Does it matter?
Well, doesn't he have? Isn't he like coming out the like? Isn't his
In the
face-
one in the one movie,
Snake?
yeah, right, yeah, right.
What?
Isn't he like a snake?
yeah,
He is
yeah,
like a snake, yeah.
Can you hug a snake?
Well,
wanna
in the
hug
form
a
of Voldemort.
snake.
If you like
So,
snakes.
okay. Dane hasn't watched Harry Potter.
That's true.
Clearly.
Last question.
Story.
Is double dipping at a party acceptable?
Totally. But just don't get caught.
Not at a party.
Not at a party.
Only at home.
All right.
Don't get caught.
That's all I got. I think
You're not invited to any party.
Debbie's gonna win. Yeah, she had 1 more point than you did, Dane.
That's okay. She always does.
Thank you for coming into my corner. It's always warm here. My corner is 90 degrees all the time.
All right. Thanks for inviting us.
Oh, wait a second. My contractor was.
Yeah.
It's 89.
He cut the corners.
89, yeah.
So I noticed when you tell a joke like that, I mean, and it's a good
Everybody
joke. I tell them,
laugh.
no, we don't get a wah 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 wah. You know.
That's because I've
He's
got
in
control
charge.
of the button.
Curious about over the years that you've been having live music at Page Mill. Think about what's like the funniest or the worst or the most memorable. Like what's a thing that happened in the context of live music at Page Mill that stands out in your mind that you want to share? I mean, anything?
We threw one party. So in my musicianship, as I've tried to become a musician and live this dream of winemaker / musician, transitioning from poet winemaker to musician winemaker, I've realized that having the venue is a really valuable thing. It's like when you were in high school and you had the PA, you know.
Right, yeah, you're in charge.
They wouldn't kick you out of the band,
Right.
right? Well, I've got the venue, so no matter how much I suck, they're going to keep me in the band. So so what I did was I would try to do at the beginning. I would try to do fundraiser events because when it's a fundraiser, you know, nobody cares whether I suck because we know my band sucks or
But the
whatever.
kids
right?
need the money.
Because it's right, exactly. So I'd do fundraisers, and then I would
Get new shoes.
and then I'd get a really cool band to follow me. So my band, we could play a small set, and then a real musician would play, and then it's always they leave remembering the great music. Oh, and Dane's band played. I think they were good. Were they good? Yeah, I don't remember. It was it was the kids. It was about the kids, and so we hired this band called Thelson, which is a fabulous band headed by Andrew Griffin, and a Bay Area band, and they came out and played, and I think it was a Saturday afternoon evening, and they were rocking it, and a gal walked in the tasting room, and she was from Concannon. And it was when they were doing the Shakespeare at Concannon. And if you've ever been at Page Mill Winery in the afternoon, the wind that comes in the valley and flows down the valley, you can hear people talking at the softball field that's over by Robertson Park.
Yes, right.
When you're at the tasting room,
Right.
Which means the air's going, the wind's going right past the winery and right
I
at
gotcha.
Concannon.
I gotcha.
And people were trying to listen to Shakespeare, and all they could hear was Felsen playing rock and roll. Man.
Yeah.
Oh, awkward.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So
Awkward.
then, from then on, I started checking the schedules and making sure we didn't overlap like that because I didn't want to be a bad neighbor.
Well, that's good. I think you answered Rob's question.
You did, yeah. That's
I don't remember what the
that's
question
a great
was.
story.
That's a good story.
About live music at and I will say again, man, you're selling yourself short as a musician. You are great, and I love
and
listening to you.
songwriter.
Yeah, and a good song.
Wow,
yeah.
bless you. It's a journey, isn't it?
Right,
Yeah.
it absolutely is. Right. So now we've done a lot of shtick, but it's time for some more. So it's time for bad joke pass around. So the way this works is I have the official Livermore Live Music bad pass around hat and some bad
joke pass around.
Thank you. I can never get that right.
No, you can't. It's still a
And I
bad joke
have some
passer.
bad joke cards in here. So you can take a card and tell a joke. You can just tell a joke that you know, or you can pass.
Cool. Can I start?
Yeah.
So we were working in the tasting room just last weekend, and this horse walked into the tasting room, and Debbie looked at it and said, "Why such a long face?" He's got control of the buttons.
You're right.
I got to laugh over here, man.
No, that's a great joke. That's classic. I love it.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and take one from the hat.
Okay.
What has 8 legs, 8 arms, and 8 eyes?
I don't know.
8 pirates.
Hey.
I like it. All right, Ken.
You're going to have to come up with some more cards. They're
They're
dwindling.
We're getting thin. Yeah. By the way, that's yours to keep. Right.
Oh, I should have taken a card.
There's still time. You could do 2 jokes, Dane. I needed a password with 7 characters and a capital. I picked 7 dwarves and Sacramento. I'd pick reading.
Yeah, right.
Okay, here we go. Bono and the Edge walked into a bar. The bartender said, "Not you two again." That was gratuitous because I think you wrote these.
No, I don't write jokes. I just steal them.
Gotcha.
So we're going to move on. But while we're passing cards around, by the way, I want to mention, so we've got these things, maybe a few bands have seen these in circulation, but this is a Livermore Live Music interband tip card. And Dane, you were, yes, he's got
What's
one. Yeah.
that? What's that in your
And I was going to say,
Yeah.
Dane was the inspiration behind these cards because we went to see you guys play one night and I put some money in your tip jar. And the next day, you guys happened to come and see us play and you put some money in our tip jar. So what do you just give me the $5 bill?
I put more
right?
in there than you did.
You
by the
did,
way.
right? Yeah. Well, you make
Just
more money
saying.
than I do. But it occurred to me that what we needed was an interband tip card where, like, I can tip you $1,000 as long as you tip it back to me the next day. And so these interband tip cards are worth $1,000, and
They're available for purchase on
You would put that in the tip
livermorelivemusic.com.
jar, is that what you're
yeah,
saying?
right.
$1,000
So
apiece.
I put this in the
But you
tip
have
jar.
to be in a band.
$1,000 prize.
Yeah, you kind of do. And then that band's supposed to go out. They don't have to give it back to the person that gave it to them. But, you know, we want all the bands in Livermore to circulate these
It's
things.
a way of saying, "Hey, I recognize you. You're doing a great job. Keep it
Yeah,
up."
yeah, you killed it.
Very
And then speaking of things that Livermore Live Music is doing, I want to take a second to take the spotlight off you and mention we got a couple of other things that are coming up. So we have the website, and we have
Which is unbelievable, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I use it all the time. I mean, it's fabulous.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of
Believe
fun.
it.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun putting it together. And we also have Spotlight. We have this podcast that we do where we're trying to, help people who listen or watch the shows get to know the venues and the bands better and want to go out and see that band or that venue, But we've got some other things coming up we're very excited about. I'm not going to tell you all about them right now, but in 2020, there's a bunch of exciting things coming to you under the umbrella of Livermore Live Music. And one of them is our on-stage product line. So on stage will be about bringing you the music of live music performers in Livermore. Sometimes there will be actual live music performances. Sometimes it'll be recordings that those live music performers have done. The first one of those products that will be out the door is our Compilation 2020 album, where we got 10 artists from the stable. I mean, there's 100. I've never counted, but there's a tremendous number of great artists out there. We had to limit it at some point, but we picked 10 and put together a compilation album of their songs. And we're going to put that out just about the time this episode airs. It should be available. So look on the website, look on the Facebook page for the Compilation 2020 album. All of the proceeds to that are going to go to Livermore School music programs.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I just wanted to mention that. It's not about Page Mill, so I'm taking the spotlight off of you. And then, as I mentioned, we've got some other great, very exciting things that we're doing in 2020 that's all about trying to recognize and support and enhance the live music scene that's going on here in Livermore. What do you got coming up? What's on your horizon in 2020 or beyond that you're excited about and you want to tell us about?
Well, we're still working on things, but of course we have music on the patio coming up. Are you?
Music on the patio is a couple times a month.
Yeah.
Right. Right, and especially when the nice weather comes back. Right, this episode will air at a different time than we're recording it. Hopefully, the weather's starting to turn about the time that this gets out there. But I mean, as musicians, we love playing anytime, anywhere. But when the weather's nice, in Livermore,
Yeah.
which is only 250 days a year, right? It's a little more fun.
Yeah.
And are you wanting to know what's coming up in terms of music?
No,
Or
sure,
anything?
or music, or Page Mill, or your own lives. You know, what's on the whatever you
any
want to
big
tell us.
plans?
What's on the horizon?
As far as Page Mill is concerned, we are always expanding and trying to improve that venue. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to be able to change in the coming year, but
Over time,
yeah, if you look over the last 5-10 years, it's really changed a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
And so we're continuing to try to make it a really good music venue.
Well, it already is a really good music venue, but you want to just keep up in the
Keep
game
up in the ante, yeah. Yeah. Personally, no more kids. I'm done.
yeah,
15, 12, and 8, I'm good.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a driver in the house in the next.
Although you're
the
kind of
next
getting
year.
a new
We're getting a new puppy.
addition.
Oh,
Yeah, we're getting a golden doodle who comes to the house on the 15th.
while we're on the topic, you have a couple of lovely daughters.
I do.
Yeah.
I have twins, identical twins who are 23,
Yeah,
and they have flown the coop. They've started their lives. They're doing pretty well.
You can
Awesome.
borrow mine.
or his
Send him
puppy,
over anytime.
or his puppy. I think we're about there. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Questions we should have asked you? Just general philosophy about life and the universe. Anything? That's a little broad, but go with it.
42.
I didn't prepare for that.
42. Yeah, I should have warned you ahead of time, right?
Can you push that over towards me?
Oh, yes.
I brought this today specifically because, and it dovetails with what I was talking about.
So some people are just listening. Some people don't see.
So I brought a bottle of our GPS wine, which is a story in and of itself. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that it's a screw top. It's a red wine. It's a Rhone blend, and it's a screw top wine.
So it's GPS Grenache.
Petit Syrah and Syrah.
Yep.
It's interesting in that, in the same way that I was trying to change the mind of my neighbors and potentially my customers to look at a vineyard and not see a perfectly weed-free row as pretty, but rather understand why there's some weeds and it looks a little rugged and see that as beautiful. At Page Mill, we're using screw caps on all of our whites, our rosé, and a few of our reds. And we did a test with the 2016 GPS. We did some in cork, some in screw top, and almost without exception, we poured them side by side. If our taster knew that one was a screw top and one was a cork, they picked the cork. But if they didn't know, almost without exception, they picked the screw top.
Interesting.
Because it's a fresher wine. It keeps it better. There's no cork taint, etc. So all that to say, Australia is almost 100% screw top. It's a great closure, and it's really weird that we're putting cork in bottles still to keep this wine that I've worked years to try to bring you. So have an open mind on screw caps, and weeds under vines are okay. They're good.
Awesome. And I would also mention. So GPS, I remember talking to you about this years ago, but you wanted that to become kind of a signature blend of the Livermore Valley. Right?
I'd love for it to be.
Yeah.
So the Rhone Valley is known for their Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. And Livermore Valley is not unlike the Rhone Valley, climate-wise, et cetera. And so I wanted to pattern a blend off that. But Petit Syrah is really a signature varietal for Livermore Valley. So I took out the Mourvedre and I put in the Petit Syrah. And so it's in the Rhone wines are called GSMs. So this would have been a GSP, but I put my marketing hat on and I said, if it's going to be my location wine, I should swap, and then I GPS. It
Right.
makes sense.
And you might want to tell us about your little contest that you have, which I actually won.
You did, and so where in the world is your GPS? So if you tag yourself on our Facebook page, with your bottle where you've gone, and when I went to Hawaii, I forgot to bring a bottle, so I can't win for December. Can't even win my own
Win your own
contest.
contest.
So then you get a bottle of GPS if you're the best selection that month.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But my picture was at Crater Lake. I thought
done.
I thought it was beautiful.
Well
I mean, beautiful backdrop. And yeah, I won.
Tag
I
us.
won something. I did. I did take it.
You're
I
a
won
winner,
something.
Kevin.
I'm a winner. Yours, yay. No, I got one of those.
Well, and in addition to all of the other great things that you talked about, I mean, it's just a great red blend. I love your GPS. It's fantastic, right?
Thank you very kindly.
It's definitely one of the most popular in the tasting room.
Yeah, as it should be. Hey, thank you guys so much for coming down. I know you have busy schedules, and for coming down and talking to us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for the website and everything you guys are doing. You're doing a
we
great
appreciate
job.
that too. John and Doug, as always, man, thank you guys so much for having us here at Advanced Creative. It's just a wonderful environment, and we love being here. And when you're out and about in Livermore and you're thinking of like, what should I do? Check the website and go see some live music because there's a lot of it out there. Thanks so much.
Thank you.